Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the lineup, or if it's your first time joining us, welcome. Thank you so much for picking this afternoon to join us. We've got a really, really wonderful event for you today. But first, you have to listen to me talk for just a little bit about the series and all of the house cleaning stuff we've got to do. And then we will get to this fantastic lineup that we've got for you today. We, of course, do the lineup almost every month with Mystery to Me, and we couldn't do it without them. So thank you, Elizabeth, for helping us with the series. This series is focused on highlighting Soho Crime authors and giving them a digital platform to talk about their new work. We are taking a little bit of a summer break in August, so we will not be back next month, but we will be back in September with a historical fiction panel. We are getting the link ready for you, and we will have that very soon. So make sure you're signed up for Soho Press and Mystery to Me newsletters. And you can always check our website, sohocrimelineup.com, to keep in the loop with that. Always, we have really exciting promotions and giveaways, and today is no exception. In fact, we've actually got a couple special things for you today. One of them being, by signing up today, everybody has automatically been entered into the Ultimate Tailgate giveaway, which will include Soho Crime merchandise and a Nomad Grill in celebration of Eli Cranor's Mississippi Blue 42. Very exciting stuff. Eli's done a great job about posting about this. So you can go check his socials if you just don't know what this is about. We won't be giving it away today. We'll be giving it away after pub date. So make sure you stay up to date on socials with that. But also, we are celebrating, of course, the series starter for Eli's new books. We have celebrated them with these special koozies. So if you purchase a book from Mystery to Me from now until pub date on August 5th, you will get one of these really wonderful koozies that are so cool to get you ready for football season. And finally, as always, we are giving away 3 gift cards to Mystery to Me to thank you for joining us and for being a part of our series. Truly, we couldn't do it without you guys tuning in every month. So make sure you stick around to the end. We'll announce the winners. We'll explain how to go about redeeming your gift card, and maybe you can put it towards a copy of Mississippi Blue 42. And last, we're going to do some questions at the end, as many as we have time for. So if at any point during the event you want to ask Eli or John T a question, on the right side of your screen, there's a little discussion bubble, and then there's a question mark in it. You can put your questions in there, and then I will pop back on and ask some of those questions at the end of the event. Now, without further ado, I am going to introduce you to Eli, who I'm sure you know already. Nationally best-selling Edgar Award-winning author Eli Cranor played quarterback at every level, Pee Wee to professional. These days, he serves as the writer-in-residence at Arkansas Tech, where he also lends his eye, and sometimes his arm, to the university's football team. Eli's column, Where I'm Writing From, appears weekly in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, and his previous works include Don't Know Tough, Ozark Dogs, and Broiler. And our moderator for the afternoon, John T. Edge, author of House of Smoke, A Southerner Goes Searching for Home, writes and hosts the television show TrueSouth, which broadcasts via the SEC network and ESPN. A widely published magazine writer, he serves Garden and Gun as a columnist. Twice winner of the MFK Fisher Distinguished Writing Award, Edge wrote The Potlicker Papers, A Food History of the Modern South. Edge teaches narrative nonfiction in the low residency MFA program at the University of Georgia. At the University of Mississippi, he directs the Mississippi Lab, where he leads the development of Greenfield Farm Writers Residency, set on William Faulkner's One Time Mule Farm. Edge also serves as writer-in-residence for the Department of Writing and Rhetoric and teaches a class on writing and reading place. Edge lives in Oxford, Mississippi with his wife, the artist Blair Hobbs. Thank you both so much for being here. This is a really wonderful event. And I'm going to get out of your way. Enjoy, John T. I'll leave it to you. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for organizing.
Thank you, Lily. This is a pleasure, Eli. And I hope we have the kind of conversation where it feels like for the other folks, they're eavesdropping on 2 friends going back and forth, because that's the way I envision it. I want to ask you just to set the scene for me. When I was a boy, my father and I used to listen to University of Georgia football games on a big old radio with kind of, it felt like this universe of silver dials on the radio. And Larry Munson would call the games for the Bulldogs, and he would begin by saying, he would say, get the picture. And that meant like, what are they wearing today? What are the Bulldogs wearing? Who's kicking off? Who's returning? So help us get the picture for this novel. Where did it begin? You could answer it that way, or you could set characters in motion. Start however you want.
For sure. Yeah, I've really been thinking about this, like as I've been getting into this, and maybe the best place to start is imagine that scene that you have seen in television or on watching a game on Saturday 100 billion times. The comeback, the Hollywood, injured quarterback, and it's the last play of the game and a touchdown wins it. And right there, maybe we get shots of the crowd, and there's the coach, and maybe he's praying on the sideline, and there's a politician in the stands behind it. You get all these shots of and I'm just laying these Easter eggs out, because what I want to say is, right as that quarterback's up there getting ready to get the snap count, and he's saying, blue 42 down, I want it to cut. I would want to cut the whole scene right there, because what this book really, the seed that it came from was that idea of that moment, and then trying to peel back all the layers of like what we've seen a million times or what we think we see on Saturday, and build back up to that moment. And when we get there, the best endings to me, like in that situation, you think there's an A or a B ending, right? You've got A, which is he wins the game. You've got B, which is he loses the game. And what I really tried to do with this book, because that was really the first thought as I was watching a game, hell, probably back around when the book's set in 2013, I thought, well, what if there's an option C? And that's kind of where it is. But yeah, the main gist, if you're reading the back of the book, it's really the protagonist is a woman named Raider Indigo Johnson, Ray Johnson. She's a rookie FBI agent. And long story short, she's top of her class in Quantico, got every reason in the world to think she's going to get doing joint terrorism task force, all this, but she gets stuck on this white collar crime case in Mississippi, a fictionalized Mississippi town and universe. And anyway,
recognizable still.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and the color scheme sure didn't help, but maybe the Oxford folk will get happy about them koozies. But long story short, she gets stuck on this case, and there's a reason. Her father is a college football coach, so they think she can dig into it. But what happens is it takes her about 24 hours to realize that that whatever's going on, terrorism, and it's got nothing to do. It's got nothing on the corruption that's going down at this university. A star quarterback it dies from the top of a college bar. Money flies everywhere when he hits the ground, and now she's got a case. And not only does that, she's got a chance to really prove herself, and get that goal of becoming, and figure out a lot about what her dad really does for a living while she's at it.
I want to stay with the backstory for a minute before we plunge forward into kind of the very propulsive novel you've written. I read this book just on the heels of having read Broiler, which I greatly admired, your last novel. And, that's a novel that has some of the same elements here. There's humor, but there's also a real sense of morality in Broiler. And I see that here too. There's a sense of an awareness of society and its ills. And we see characters who care about those things. And I wonder, as you were thinking about the moral backdrop for this novel, what were you reading in newspapers? What were you encountering in pop culture? What were you thinking about?
A great question, John T. This book, to be honest, this book was like a 10-year book in the making, which is not normal for me. So my first three novels all probably took a year and a half And what would happen was, so I wrote Don't Know Tough first, and it was actually about the fourth manuscript that I had finished. First three are just, we're learning books that should never see the light of day. And then Don't Know Tough happened. And then it was right after that, which it was a high school football novel. I thought, and this was right around the time that great SB Nation article came out, Meet the Bagman. You remember that when they were doing that was when it was, and this was right around that same Johnny Manziel was getting like 2013, 2014. It was the first time we were getting outside the Pony Express and SMU where we were getting real whiffs of that. So I wrote a whole draft. It was called Blood Orange Fall. It was set in Florida. It was just garbage. And then I trashed it. And then I wrote the next, and long story short, in between every book, it was like I'd write a whole new draft of trying to figure out. There was no FBI angle involved at all. That came along when the Marty Blazer and the whole FBI basketball sting came along. That's when I thought, oh, well, hell, what if this is how this becomes a crime novel? Because now let's just take the FBI stuff and dig into college football. And then I thought, well, where do I do this? And I was born in Forest City, so Forest City is just 30 minutes, west of Memphis, right on the Mississippi line. And so growing up in that culture, I lived there for about 5 years. We did all our Christmas. That's really the Delta. And then where I live now is more, I think like Winter's Bone, like Daniel Woodrell kind of, that's, and there's a difference, even though it's Arkansas. So it was even though I'm writing Mississippi, I'm really writing Delta, was what I was trying to write more of. So all those things started to come together. Stylistically, Carl Hyacin, Elmore Leonard, those were the guys that I wanted to emulate in terms of the tone of this book. And I really think that was a big shift for me. I know it was a big shift for me. And I think I was thinking about this just the other day. Like my first books, like I take people who are like average people, and I put them in really bad situations, or at least they're supposed to be really realistic people, like really true. And I put them in really bad situations. Larry Brown said, I want trouble on the first page. I want my people to get trouble on the first page. And then I just would kind of twist the knife throughout the rest of the book. And I wrote most of those books either before my kids were born or before, and they're rough and they kind of rip your guts out and they're hard books, Southern Noir, that's what they were titled. And I don't know, there's something about Mississippi Blue 42 where it's like I'm writing people that are kind of larger than life, and I hope they still feel real. But it was really kind of fun with all the headlines and the stuff that I'm reading that just makes me sick. This was a new kind of thing, a new exercise where I could line these people up and shoot them down, like line the bad guys up and really have fun taking them down. And that was a whole new thing. And boy, I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, you've done a good job here, I think, of building these characters that are at once larger than life. But then if you look around, there's that guy walking down the street because, to live in Mississippi or to live in Arkansas is to live in one big small town. So these characters you've depicted are people I know in life. I mean, these are people, I see, Brett Favre has a cameo role in this. And then as far as my read is, he inspires one of the threads in this book. And, so to my read, it may not be your intent, but I see Tommy Tuberville, the former football coach from Alabama and from Mississippi, now a U.S. Senator. I see him alive in this book. You've laid in characters that are surely larger than life, but we know them. We know them well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and like you just said, Arkansas, Mississippi. I had one of my good buddies and guy that's just blowing up in the crime world right now, S.A. Cosby. He lives from Virginia, so he might have been one of the few people. I pick him up at the Little Rock Airport. We're driving to Russellville down I-40, and there's literally in front of us in pools like a Honda Civic, and it had some sort of luggage rack attached to the back, and in it was a goat in a cage. There was a goat going down the interstate, and Sean and I both were just like, we were just kind of like pointed and we're like, goat, like that was it. Like we just said goat.
Right. There's no big deal.
But
Yeah.
if I had picked up anybody else who had just flown in to
Yeah.
come, visit our university or whatever, that could have been a lot bigger deal. But yeah, to say what you're saying, I mean, there are definitely people I cherry picked. I read, this was a Carl Hyacin thing I read, that he in Broiler, my editor Juliet Grames, she told me to meet the challenge with love, because Broiler was such a challenge for me in so many ways. I was writing across so many gaps. And
Gender,
so
especially. Yeah.
yeah, especially. I mean, there were so many things and it was a big challenge and a big stretch. And we worked and worked and worked through revisions. And she told me that line, meet the challenge with love. So I wrote it on a piece of paper and taped it above my monitor.
Hmm.
For Mississippi Blue 42, I just wrote rage. I just wrote rage. I know that doesn't necessarily sound right because it's a pretty lighthearted book, but because, like I said, it was my chance to really, like right now it feels so helpless. Like you can feel so helpless. You watch the news and you watch these things. And I know that it's a football book, but for me, this book was always football was the metaphor. Football is the vehicle to talk about what was really going on in the 2013, 2014, and that kind of moment too.
And I don't want to take you to the darkness, but if the word was rage, what was the catalyst for the rage? What got you so riled up?
Well, yeah, and I need to mention that rage. I'd read a great Neil Nyren wrote this great piece for Crime Reads about getting Carl Hyacин's first book, and that was something Carl Hyacin had done, and man, it was just all of it. I laid the scene with that first bit about the quarterback in that moment in that game. And it wasn't just football and the injustices, but I mean, in that point in time, it was Trump. We were moving into this new world, and so what I always talk about is like there was America, there was college football that we believed there was this mythology, right? And the mythology of college football was that these boys are playing for the love of the team, they're playing for the love of their university, the love of their state. They're gutting it out. When in reality,
Right.
they were all getting paid under the table. And the only people who it was going to negatively impact if it came out were the players, which in that FBI case in the basketball world, there's great coverage of that. But that case was crazy. The FBI guys were, they were gambling. They think they needed to get money. And when the whole thing washed out, a couple of assistant coaches got fired. That's all that ended up happening. And then a couple of players really got screwed out of their careers because their names kind of got blackballed. They got, by the time it was all over, that's the only people that hurt. So I think this moment in time, why the book is so important to be said right there, is because a lot could be said the same about America. Like there was a mythology that we had ascribed to that was about to be lifted and our eyes were about to be open.
So that's 13, 14, that
Yeah.
moment you're capturing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's dive deeper into the book now. You introduced us to Ray, who's showing up in this small Mississippi town. You mentioned earlier, your Easter eggs, and there are Easter eggs throughout this book. What's the name of the town where she shows up?
Thompson.
Uh-huh.
Thompson,
And
Mississippi.
what's the name of the one of the villains of this book? Not Thanksgiving, but
Harry Christmas. He's no
right,
relation to Joe Christmas, but yeah, but
right.
yeah.
And there's no relation to Quentin Compson from another Faulkner. It's just
Or Sutton
coincidence.
Stadium. No.
No, right. Yeah, I forgot about the Sutpin Stadium. Like, so why lard the thing through with those references? What are you trying to do there?
I don't know. I think for somebody like you or for somebody who's read Faulkner, it was just something that I thought people would enjoy. Like this is, and
Yeah.
it's been funny. I have always fictionalized. Well, I didn't fictionalize Broiler. It was set in Springdale, Arkansas. But for the first two novels, I did because I was writing in my backyard. And this one, I just had to fictionalize. I wasn't going to take the chance of trying to really write about a real university. But I don't know, for and so everybody knew it was Compton wasn't a real place, but it felt like a way just to kind of breathe that ghost of Faulkner into it.
Yeah.
It's a
There's a,
strange.
I mean,
Well, I was just going to say, it's been my life, to have to blend literature and football as a guy who was an English lit major and was also the university's quarterback. So that was just kind of
right.
an easy way where I thought, okay, if this book's appealing to college football fans, or if it's appealing to people who've read Faulkner, well, then you can get a little bit of both.
Right. The thing I think people listening to this conversation might take away from this is, this is a serious-minded book that is playful at the same time, and it takes on big issues. But these sly references to Faulkner are not Eli kind of climbing on the high horse. They're him poking a little bit at Mississippi from over in Arkansas. As a man who stands on the other side of this conversation and stands in Mississippi in this moment, I have to say I like it. So
Well,
tell me about.
let me tell you this. This is a bit when my dad's not a reader, and he had not read Don't Know Tough prior to it coming out, and it started to gain traction. And it got to a point where he was like, "Hell, son, I'm gonna have to read this book," because people keep asking me about it. And after he did, he called me on the phone, and the first thing he said was, "Why did you have to set it in Arkansas?" Because he was like, you just killed Arkansas. So, you could have put it, and he said you could have said it in Mississippi.
Yeah. So tell me, we met Ray. You began to introduce us to her. Who are her antagonists? Who does she fight on the way to some sort of victory?
Yeah, she's got all sorts. I mean, that's really my favorite thing about writing this book is I should know this, but I think there's at least 10 point of view characters in this book. Like we get inside a lot of people's heads. Ray gets the majority of the scenes, but we are jumping around. And Ray has got a partner named Frank Ranchino, who's from New York, or he's actually from Brooklyn. And then outside of that, who they're kind of going against, there's a bagman named Eddie Pride Jr., who runs a beach chair business out of Gulfport called Lazy Days. His daughter is a gridiron girl, which, if you're not familiar with that term, gridiron girls they're the hosts for the high school recruits or the transfers that are coming in. They take them out to the clubs or the bars, or maybe not even all that. It just depends. And then from there, you've got the Compton chief of police, Bruiser Brant Conrad. And then you've got Harry Christmas, a congressman who's been in the mix for a long, long time. I can't really say too much about Harry without giving. Oh, and then there's the head coach, Spear Taylor, who is very evangelical in the way that he approaches his football program.
And the coach to me is one of the most compelling characters because he is, I don't know, you see a televangelist in him, you see, a swindler in him, you see a motivational speaker in him. Where did he come from?
Well, there was a line in that book, John T., that said, "Only Jesus can handle my junk." Are you familiar with that line? You recognize that line? Yeah. So that was a Hugh Freeze line. For those who are watching that don't know Hugh Freeze, he was Ole Miss's coach for a minute. He actually coached my cousin in Memphis when he was it Briarcrest? Huh. Was that the real name of the school? Was it Briarcrest? I can't remember, but
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. So there was a lot of Hugh Freeze, but there was also a lot of at one point in the book, Spear Taylor is baptizing his players after practice in these ice baths and these horse troughs, which really happened at Clemson. Dabu Swaney was out baptizing players after practice. So that's the crazy thing about this book is so much of it seems so far-fetched. And, I think people that aren't familiar with that world are going to think, where the hell did Eli come up with this? But
it's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you, as you're researching this, are you going looking for that stuff, or do you remember Dabo doing that, and you remember Hugh doing X, and when you're sitting down at the laptop, it's coming to you? How does it work?
Yeah, man, it wasn't. I mean, that was one. I, I do not like to research. Like, I don't ever like take a whole bunch of time and like. I don't have like a research period. I have more of like a just gesticulation period, and it's where the ideas are coming, and then I usually try and get the story, and then as the story gets going, I figure out where the research kind of needs to go in. Even like with the book like Broiler, I mean, I had done just being in Arkansas, like I knew chicken processing, but my editor, when we were going through, Juliet would leave places in the book, and she would just write needs more chicken porn, and so that was for me to like go back and find, some new, and that was kind of how this was. But honestly, I mean, as a college football fan and a former player, like so much of that stuff's just kind of baked in.
And thinking of yourself as a player, you know, we heard your backstory here, and a lot of people on the Zoom probably know some of your backstory, but maybe just on the surface. Um, when did you realize that football was not going to be your life?
Well, so yes, played Florida Atlantic for one season, Ouachita Baptist, Sarah Huckabee Sanders' alma mater was where I finished up. Went and played in Sweden for a year, then coached high school football for 5 years. I became a head high school football coach when I was 26 years old. And that job, we went 1-19. And so the short story of that
Oof.
career was getting skull drug like that was when I knew that I was no longer going to be. And
Right.
I swear to God, John T, if I had won, um, we might not be having this conversation today. Like it was that it coincided with the birth of my daughter. And I think the combination of those two things, like how much time I was
Right.
spending at the field house, and then man, I didn't know what the hell to do. I mean, I was an English teacher. I'd always been teaching English until I became a head coach. And so I was an English teacher, and that's when I went back in like hardcore trying to teach myself how to write novels.
And you mentioned some models, called Hyacinth and others. Um, was there, I see other models alive in this book. Were there other people from whom you borrowed as you thought about this book, the structure, the morality, the characters?
Let me think about that. I mean, I know that baked deep inside of me, like in terms of where I really cut my teeth, is Faulkner, is Flannery O'Connor, Larry Brown, Harry Crews, Jesmond Ward was a huge influence on Don't Know Tough. Um, there were other books. There were other like college football books, even books that when I was a coach. Um, I don't have it sitting over there, but there was this great book, like it was just called something simple like How to Win Football Games. Like it was like a
Right.
coaching book. All that stuff was it. If you don't mind me asking, is there any that you're thinking that I didn't name?
I, I mean, I was thinking about All the King's Men,
Hmm.
as I was reading this. I saw the the same kind of rise and fall. I saw, all the kind of constellation of people that are a part of an organization, led by somebody who's corrupt, and their dependence upon that leader, in the ways that, kind of toxic mess spilled over into the larger society. I saw that in your book.
That was you mentioned research earlier, and I didn't really give it. I mean, I guess I still can't. It's all kind of top secret, but like I've got guys that are coaching in the SEC, and I've got buddies that are players and things like that, and so there were a lot of real life conversations, and that who had played specifically at this time or coached at this time, and like I said, I spent one year at Florida Atlantic, which the head coach there was Howard Schnellenberger. So if you know about football history, he's the guy that kind of started the U at Miami. So there were pieces of that I had brushed up
Right.
against, but I wasn't ever getting a bag of money. I was fourth string quarterback. But but then like at Washita, it's just too small of a school to do it. But there were real conversations that went on, with some of that stuff as well.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, we've been talking about football a good bit here, and that's certainly embedded in the title of the book and much of the motion of the book. But you also do a really good job, I think, of introducing us to the intricacies of small town life. We go to blues bars, we go to waffle houses, and you lavish a kind of attention on those places. And I wondered, what's your relationship to Waffle House, and maybe what's your order?
So I love Waffle House. And I mean, as a college guy, as a football player, it was, we'd play a football game on Saturday in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, home
Yep.
of one of the greatest rivalries in college football history. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Battle of the Ravine, John T? It's been on
No.
sports a couple times. So in a tiny town of Arkadelphia, Arkansas, we have 10,000 people. And there are two colleges, two Division II colleges that are in the same town. And so the Battle of the Ravine, it's Henderson State, they're the bad guys, the Reddies, against Washita Baptist University. And so if you're playing away, you would literally get dressed in your own locker room and walk across Highway 64 and go over and play the game. Like you walk to the game. So I say all
Wow.
that, we'd play these games and then we go out, and then Waffle House that's where I developed my love of Waffle House, was those late night, Waffle House.
Yeah.
And I actually think even before that, I mean, mom and dad would stop and eat in Waffle House. And now it's become this thing. My wife refuses to eat at a Waffle House. She absolutely refuses. So it's become this thing for me with my kids that like daddy gets to take you to Waffle House. And
Right.
man, there's so many great stories in a Waffle House. Like, I mean, for a guy,
Yeah.
Henry James said an artist, an author should be someone on whom something is like nothing is ever lost. So that just always means to me, like you're watching, you're listening, and in a Waffle House, the cup runneth over. I mean, even in my hometown
Does.
of Forest City, Arkansas, made the news probably a decade ago because some woman was on camera in the Waffle House washing her hair in the sink, like the same sink that they're using to do, So it was. I wanted to get and I'll say all this to say in that SB Nation Meet the Bagman Stephen Godfrey piece, that's where these suckers did a lot of their business. That's
Right.
where the bagmen were meeting, mainly because the Waffle House never closes.
Right.
I'm sure you're familiar with the Waffle House Index. The yeah. You want to tell the because most people might not. Some people don't even have a Waffle House around, John T.
Right. So the Waffle House Index, as I understand it, is a measure of how hard the storm that has hit the individual place is. And is the Waffle House open, and on what schedule is it open? Is it open 24 already, or is it on limited hours? It's a measure of recovery and resilience in a bunch of different ways. I also think that you've managed to help us understand that the Waffle House is kind of a stage in a small town, or like almost like a theatrical stage. People walk onto that stage. In this case, they take a seat in a booth or they take a seat on a stool, and they act out this small drama. Something goes down, and it's where you witness pathos. It's where you witness joy. It's where you witness slovenly drunkenness. Stuff goes down at a Waffle House, and why not, as you've done it here? Why not the bag full of money exchanged at the Waffle House? Why not the deals made at the Waffle House? I think it's a great recognition of an institution and its role in a community. It's a small D democratic institution.
That is exactly right, John. And a lot of the things too. I mean, stuff that goes down at the Waffle House, you don't always go talking about what happens at the Waffle House. So it's a
Right.
perfect place to make a drop. To pay the quarterback or whoever.
The other place that, or at least musically it looms large, is blues music gets filtered into this. It's the music of the road in this novel. It's the music of juke joints in this novel. It's the music of a particular character in this novel. Now, I wanted to ask you how that came to be a part of this novel. How did that? It's a small thread, but it's an important one. Why did you choose that? Why did you choose to pull that thread?
Oh well, I mean, first I started playing guitar when I was like 12, and I took the guitar around with me on the last day. I don't think I'll ever do it again, but I learned quick. Most people didn't show up at the book signing to hear the author play guitar.
It was short. It was mercifully short. It was good.
I did keep it short, yep. But I started playing it as a boy from Forest City. Like so many great musicians. One of my favorites, Levon Helm, is the drummer and the singer of the band, is just from right outside of there, and so many others. And so I knew that world. It's what I was learning to play when I was young. Those songs, and it just felt like a perfect fit. It felt like a way to kind of weave that in and give it some of that feel. And I even use at one point, a lot of it is Ray digging deep into her daddy, who is a college, and her daddy has a relationship to blues music. And what she says in there is that it was a way that he would use it as a recruitment tactic, his knowledge of the blues. And so I don't know. I thought there was a lot of different ways to try and kind of bend and shape the blues. Yeah. And it worked well with the title and everything else.
Yeah. Let's come back to Ray, because she is the primary character here. She's the person who carries us through the novel. As you mentioned, there are all these different sorts of points of view that you offer. And I think that's one of the great things about this book. Like, you as a reader can choose multiple points of entry to get caught up in the book itself and take the ride. But Ray's the person you're going to be riding shotgun with. As you were constructing her as a character, did you find her flaw first, or did you find I don't know, her drive and curiosity? Where'd she come from?
Oh, that is the question. And it was a question that we were asking up until like the final revision. So I told you this book took like 10 drafts, and all the big cast of characters just came to life. Anytime I'd write an Eddie Pride Jr. scene, anytime I'd write an LMA Pride Jr. scene, anytime I'd write Frank Ranchino, the coach, the politics, all those guys just and the girls. But it was Ray. Ray had a bunch of different names. She was, at one point, she was a female bag woman who was like long before it became an FBI book. And really, there's three things that converged for me to figure out who Ray was. One is the movie Remember the Titans. Hayden Panettiere's character, that blonde, she's that little blonde coach's daughter with those curls.
Yep.
And a part of me was thinking, what is this? What if she grows up and had to like?
Well, really, she grows up, yeah.
Yeah. Then okay, the next thing, what if she's a federal agent? And the federal agent side came to me because my aunt, she's actually was a special agent in charge. She worked with the FBI, recently retired. And so I was able to dig in with Aunt Lily and think, okay. And then the final part of Ray's character, she's an athlete. And she was a former pole vaulter at the University of Arkansas. And my wife was a former pole vaulter at the University of Arkansas. And there's a lot about the deeper I went into Ray, the more honestly I just kind of watched my wife, and really was like, how would you? And I know, and so I like that, because if this book really does become a book that we have a series, then I've got a good character study. And Mallory was like it's ridiculous, but she saw.
How did that conversation go with your wife when you said, by the way, the character is becoming more and more like you, and there's a whole series coming about this character? Was there a negotiation? Was there a diamond ring? Was there,
No, she's gotten to the point now where she warns my friends, like she'll say, like, be careful what you say around Eli. Like, and she's aware of the family business. She understands, what's all going into it. So it does, but she will literally stop people mid-story at a restaurant and be like, you know what he does for, like, that's going to end up in the book. Oh my God.
You do them the grace of not writing it down while they're at the table. You excuse yourself, go to the bathroom and scribble it down there.
That's right. That's
Not
right.
like I've done something like that before. Yeah.
Never, never.
Uh, I want to ask you like one big overarching question, and this may be our last, and I may have a follow up to this, but I, you know, a book like this is a lot of work, and you've been working at this book longer than most of your books. And beyond entertaining people, beyond introducing us to a really ribald and wild cast of characters, I believe when you write a book like this, when you talked earlier before about having rage as an informant, that you write it to make a difference. You write it to change perspective. And I want to ask you, like, after somebody's read this book, they put it down, they're sitting there talking to their spouse about the book they just read. What do you want them to carry in their heads? What do you want them to be thinking about, or engage somebody else to talk about? What's your wish?
I heard somebody say, I wish I could quote who said this. I heard it recently. Um, that a novel in like our culture today, it really serves as like a conversation starter, or at least it serves as something when, and I think this is especially true of dudes, because dudes just don't read novels, and if they do, they want to like learn something, or they want to be able to then have something to say. And so
It's
for
a
me,
transaction almost
yeah,
for
yeah, they
guys.
need to have bettered, like there's no such thing as leisurely reading. They need to have bettered themselves, or gained their knowledge. And so, I mean, around here, anytime somebody brings up college football, they're going to bring up NIL. And so, for anybody who isn't aware of that, it's name, image, likeness. And it's in 2021, it just meant that players could now make money off of their name, image, or likeness. That's gone in a bunch of different ways, where they can get paid as advertising, or they can get money straight from a collective, which is basically like these bagmen. But what was so confounding to me was these people who would stop me at the barbershop. And I know I don't have any hair, but I do get my beard lined up, and start talking about this stuff. They just had no idea. Not only did they not know what was really taking place, but they had no idea what had taken place to get to.
Before. Yeah.
Yeah, what did it really look like? What was really going on? Because they had been drinking that Kool-Aid so long of like, these boys are playing for the love of the game.
Right.
Now, some of those guys were playing for the love of the game. And there's a
Sure.
lot of great stuff about college football. I mean, for so long in my life, I attributed nearly all of my personal success to the lessons I learned playing football, to learn and discipline, perseverance, all this stuff. So for me, that was the perfect place to position a novel in this world where the gray zone is where you want to start it. And so what I want people to understand, on one level is I want them, if you're coming at it from the football angle, to see, okay, like, wow, it is one, it's crazy as hell, like how much passion, pride, pageantry goes into all that. Two, I can't believe they could have been making billions of dollars and not paying those players $1 for as long as we did, and nobody said a word about it.
Right.
And then on the deeper level, I would really like for people to see, um, I would like for there to see a parallel, like what I was talking about earlier. Like, oh, wow, this is all kind of happening on the football stage of things. But at the same time, at the almost the exact same time in our country, there was this other cultural shift that was happening, and how the sport can kind of reflect the greater American game.
Those are two great things to hold in your head. And I'd say that one and a half of those I held in my head, maybe two. Um,
Job done.
so we've got questions coming in, and I'm happy to take them, or Lily's going to take them. Thank you, Lily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
Thank you
Lily,
guys.
before we get started,
Yeah.
can I ask John T a question?
Do it.
John T, you were talking to me, about writing those, like the people and the stories, like at the restaurant. But you've got a memoir coming out in September, House of
Yep.
Smoke, and I'm about 50 pages into it right now. And I've never, I mean, I write a weekly column, so I've delved a little, but man, just on a guttural level, like I know this as a novelist, I get scared every time a book comes out. Every time a book is creeping toward publication, I
Sure.
start to lose sleep. I start to think, damn, like Brett Favre's going to get me, like there's always something.
Completely.
And how in the world is that for something as personal as a memoir, as personal as House of Smoke is? I mean, how does that go?
It goes the exact same way. It is, there is a want to get it right. And sometimes getting it right means um, pissing off people. But if you can manage to get it right and be kind while you're doing it, then you accept what comes down the pike. At least that's the way I'm thinking about it. Plus, I go see a therapist.
That's the part that I'm still like, well, like pissing people off is it's inevitable. I mean that's
Right.
what you.
But that's not my intent. My intent is to be kind to everybody, including myself. And to be kind to myself, I have to tell the truth.
Yeah, yeah, it's
So
good.
you do a lot of truth telling in this book. Let's bring it back to you.
Well, here's a question for both of you, a little bit piggybacking off of that. Caitlin asks, what advice would you give an emerging novelist or memoirist looking to finish, edit, and publish their first book?
John T, you want to start? I'm
That's
good.
you, man.
Okay, yeah, I teach creative writing. I know John can't wait to hear what John T's got to say on it too. But and I just tell my students, man, as simple as like read and write, like literally all the because a lot of them don't do one of those two things. Like they might be writing all the time, but they ain't reading shit. And I'm like, how? Like, how do you not know? How do you know what to do if you're not reading? So create. And I know this sounds prescriptive, but it's really not. If you break time down, like create a daily routine where you are reading and writing every day, like a day, like carve out an hour to do both of those things every day, even just starting little. Um, and then you will learn the craft. I mean, Ray Bradbury said, "You're not a real writer till you've written 1,000,000 words." That was pretty much true for me. It took me that many words, just like you're not a concert pianist until you've practiced 10,000 hours. Like, so read and write as much as you can, and then finish your projects. Like so many people get a great idea, get 20,000 words into it, just stop, and you don't learn anything if you stop. So those are my three things.
One thing, just and this will sound a little Oxford centric, because I live in Oxford, Mississippi, which is a very literary centric town. But I think it applies to any place you live, and that is be in conversation with other writers. Be in that world as much as you can. Go to readings at bookstores. If you have to drive 2 hours and do a turnaround, do it. Be in that world so that you both have examples of people who are successful in that world as your lodestar, and so that you catch the small interstitial bits of wisdom they offer, and so that you also see they're humans just like you with just the same fallibilities and problems.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. So helpful. I always love when folks ask that question. From Marissa, and I'm so sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Is it difficult to write female characters, or what is your experience writing female characters?
Uh, I, I would like to say I would hope that I've gotten better at it. When I first started, and I remember like querying. I got that was a lot of the responses I got. Where the female characters need work. Or the women characters need work, and now I don't know. I think like when I told y'all that I'm basically writing a caricature of my wife. Like that's one thing I've really found too. If you're talking like writing advice, like if you got the imagination to make anything up you want to make up, and that's true. but a lot of the best stuff comes from the heart. Like it comes from things that you've at least brushed up against, or you've felt, or you've experienced. So, and I do this with characters all the time. Like I will take a person and just bend them just a little bit, and that really helps me bring them to life on the page.
Marissa says you've been awesome at it, Eli. From Rob, we have, I love that MB42 is the start of a series. How did you decide to make that commitment to yourself and to us readers?
Well, that's a great question. I, like I was mentioning Elmore Leonard and Carl Hyacin, and those guys didn't really do series. Like they kind of would have characters that recurred in other novels, and but then there's a guy like Ace Atkins, another Oxford guy, whose Quinn Colson series was set in a fictional county in Mississippi, and was so I don't know. It felt really like it felt like security almost and maybe this is it. So I like the security of like, here's your characters, and you can have, and I'm just about to finish up and submit a draft of the second novel in this series. And so I got to experience what's that like to come back and have a whole cast of characters to play with and know. And for me, it was awesome. I like to write. Like a lot of people say, like they don't like to write, they like having written. I like to write. Like I enjoy the process and the meditative qualities that it takes me out of the world for 2 or 3 hours, every day. So that was a part of it. But the truth of the matter is, even as big and as maybe ambitious as Mississippi Blue 42 is, like it's just scratching the surface of and especially because it's 10 years ago. Where all I can really say about this next one is that it's right now. So like we're tackling what the world and college football look like right now. So that was.
I mean, piggybacking off of that, Dan asked, how many novels are you planning on doing in the series? And if you can say what direction this story will go.
Oh, I can't tell you how many. I don't know if, by any means. And directionally, I don't really know that either. I mean, right? The first idea was always to do one that told you why NIL had come about, and then to do one about like what it really looks like. That was the start. So we'll see where it goes from there.
And we've got one final question from Carol Ann, who says, Frank is a fellow Brooklynite. Why Brooklyn?
That's a great question, Carol Ann. And the truth is because what I just said was I said it around people that I know. And so one of my longest buddies in this whole industry is a guy named William Boyle. And he's also in Oxford, so I've been a long time reader of his books and felt like that just through osmosis, it was going to be the place that I could at least understand well enough, to get close to the page, get around.
Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Those are so awesome. Before we end this and announce the gift card winners, does anybody have anything to end it with? Do you want to talk about what you're doing next?
I just want to encourage you to read Eli's book. I joined this conversation not because I like the fellow in the panel next to me, but because I genuinely like his book, and I like him too. But I want y'all to read it. And reading it, I read it when I was traveling with my wife. We were in Italy, and I was like somewhere in Tuscany, and we stayed 3 or 4 days, and I tore through that book in a day and a half. And I think you will too. And it's been a pleasure talking about it.
Thanks so much, John T. And if you guys haven't tuned in to TrueSouth on SEC Network, it's food. If you like food, if you like the South, if you're not from the South and you're curious, it's very much, if you end up reading this book and liking it, that's a very visual representation of a lot of the same stuff that's tackled in there. And then House of Smoke, John T.'s memoir. September, what's the actual date?
16th. Thank you.
September 16th. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. You both have very busy schedules, so thank you for lending your afternoons to us. We're going to do gift card winners. So round of applause, I guess, drum roll. Our $25 gift card is going to Rob Hayes.
All right.
Congratulations. Our $50 gift card is going to Ashley Rogers. Wonderful. And then our $75 gift card is going to Chad Sanborn. So thank you all
All right.
so much. We will email you the details if you've won a gift card. So do not fret. We'll be in your inboxes about how those work. John T, Eli, thank you so much. Congratulations to both of you on your upcoming releases. We are so honored to have you on our platform today. Elizabeth, thank you, all of you who make this possible by showing up every month. We appreciate you. We'll see you in September. Thank you all. Have a really wonderful rest of your Wednesday.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.